I always knew it was only a matter of time before my sister would try to destroy my dreams, but I never expected her to do it so blatantly. That day, I had torn through my room for the third time, heart pounding as every drawer came up empty. My passport was gone. The one thing I needed to board my flight for the scholarship interview in Paris had vanished. Just last night, it was safely tucked in the folder on my desk. Now, gone without a trace. I'm Evelyn Parker, 21 years old, the eldest daughter of a so-called cultured family in the Boston suburbs. My whole childhood, I was branded as too ambitious, should be more humble, simply because I preferred books over parties and dared to dream outside my family's narrow expectations. The truth is, I never did anything wrong. But in their eyes, my biggest fault was refusing to live in the shadow of Emily, my younger sister, the Parker family's golden child. At just 19, Emily was the pride of the entire neighborhood, prom queen, church youth leader, the smiling face of every charity event. And me? They said I was stubborn, difficult, and always causing trouble. Evelyn, what mess are you making up there again? My mother's voice drifted up from the kitchen, sweet but sharp as a blade. Your passport? You probably misplaced it. You get so scatterbrained when you're stressed, remember? I bit my lip, swallowing the anger rising in my throat. This wasn't the first time, and it was certainly not my fault. At the door, that all-too-familiar silhouette leaned against the frame. Emily stood there, golden curls perfectly styled, like she'd just stepped out of a magazine, twirling a lock of hair around her finger. Her half-smile sent a chill through my veins. Maybe this is a sign from God, sis. Not everyone is meant for the outside world, you know? Her voice was soft, but every word sliced deep. I glanced at the scholarship invitation still lying neatly on my desk. A full-ride global policy program, selecting just 50 students across the entire U.S., something I had kept secret for 3 months, knowing exactly what would happen when they found out. They would do anything to stop me. I'm not running away, Emily, I said, rummaging through the drawers one last time. I earned this fair and square. Why can't you be happy for me? Emily stepped into my room, her high heels clicking slowly against the hardwood floor. Oh, I'm always happy for you, it's just, you're so unlucky, sis. Remember that prom dress you ordered that somehow arrived in a child size? Or your research project that mysteriously vanished from your laptop right before the deadline? Strange. My chest tightened. Every word reopened memories like fresh wounds. None of those were accidents, I knew it. Emily knew it, but she'd never admit it. Evelyn, come down right now. Your father wants to talk. Mom's tone was no longer gentle. I exhaled, walking slowly down to the living room where my parents sat like judges ready to deliver their verdict. Dad, legs crossed, eyes cold. Mom, her silver cross gleaming as she gestured to the empty seat across from them. Sweetheart, we need to have a serious talk about this scholarship. Mom, everything's already clear, I replied, standing my ground. I got in. I've decided to go. Evelyn, be realistic. Dad leaned forward, his voice dropping low. This could be an opportunity, or it could be an impulsive mistake. We're just worried about you. I'm old enough to know what I want. Don't mistake control for love. My voice was colder than I expected. Beside me, Emily sniffled. I just want you to be happy. But you always turn everything into a competition, always make it a battlefield. Mom immediately pulled her into an embrace, her eyes piercing through me like icy needles. You are hurting her again, Evelyn, you always do. I didn't respond. Some battles are best fought with silence. Maybe you should pray on it, darling. Mom sighed, her words dripping with false concern. Not every door that opens is the one God intends. Something inside me clicked into place. Not an explosion, just a quiet, final turn of the lock. You're right. Maybe I should pray on it. I smiled, but it wasn't for them. And this time, I wasn't seeking their approval. With less than 48 hours until my flight to Paris, I found myself standing in the living room, listening to empty words spilling from the mouths of people who shared my blood but not my vision. Dad reclined, fingers steepled like preparing for a board meeting. Evelyn, we know you've worked hard, but sometimes God has his ways of reminding us. Not every dream is the right path. I almost laughed. The last time he said that was when I refused to apply to the college Mom had picked out for Emily. Mom tilted her head, eyes glistening with rehearsed sympathy. We're just worried about you, dear. Europe is far, it's dangerous. No familiar faces? Meanwhile, Emily's busy representing our family at church events, making us proud every day. Predictable as ever, Emily batted her lashes demurely. I just want you to think carefully, Evelyn. Paris sounds glamorous, but not everyone can handle the pressure. I worry you'll be disappointed. Again. Like when my prom dress got mysteriously bleached, I said evenly. Or when my research project disappeared right before submission, even though you were the last one to use my laptop. The room thickened with an awkward silence. Evelyn, Mom gasped, as if I'd just insulted the family name. Don't turn small accidents into heavy accusations. Accidents? I smirked. Then what about my passport vanishing right after you all found out about my scholarship? Another divine intervention? Emily pressed her lips together, but her eyes gleamed with a challenge. She didn't need to speak. We both knew this game by heart. I was always the emotional one. Emily was just concerned. Evelyn, you're blowing this out of proportion, Dad interjected, his tone that of a patient lecturer. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Not every closed door is a tragedy. Sometimes it's protection. No, Dad. I locked eyes with him. It's control. It's fear. Fear of seeing your daughter dream bigger than the box you've built for her. That landed like a silent slap. Dad's grip tightened on the armrest. Mom lowered her gaze. Emily straightened her posture, basking in her temporary victory. You need more time to think, Evelyn, Mom said, sickeningly sweet. Stay home this week. Join Emily at the fundraiser. Maybe you'll find what truly matters. I inhaled slowly. They still didn't get it. Or maybe they refused to. So what you're really saying is I should cancel my trip because my passport happened to go missing at the perfect moment? I asked calmly. Or are you asking me to believe this is destiny? Their silence was the answer. And it spoke louder than any sermon they'd ever preached. I turned and walked up the stairs, leaving behind calculating stares that clung to my back. When my bedroom door closed, I sank onto the edge of my bed. My phone buzzed. A message from Noah, the only person who truly knew what I was facing. Backup passport secured. Cars coming at 5 a.m. Are you sure about this? I gripped my phone, eyes locked on that line. More sure than ever. I stood up, quietly opened my wardrobe, slid my hand behind a wooden panel. From there, I pulled out a document box. Inside, a brand new passport, plane tickets, and copies of every scholarship document. They could hide everything, except my preparation. From my window, the light from the room across flickered. Emily was laughing, on FaceTime, probably spreading the latest Evelyn fails again update. Sometimes I wondered if she ever got tired of wearing that angelic mask 24/7. Probably not. People who've lived too long in their own performance start to believe they're invisible. But this time, she was wrong. I opened my phone, quickly typed, "Activate Plan Bravo. See you tomorrow morning." On my desk, the scholarship invitation lay untouched, a silent reminder. I hadn't come this far to be stopped by cheap tricks. Tomorrow, everything would change. I placed the backup passport into the hidden lining of my old moss green backpack, the same one from my camping trip when I was 15. Mom never paid attention to it. In our family, if it wasn't shiny and designer labeled, it might as well not exist. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Noah. Don't forget to cover the camera outside your room. Be careful with Emily. She won't give up that easily. I stared at the ceiling corner where a tiny red light blinked. The family security camera, supposedly for our safety. Conveniently, last night's footage, when my passport vanished, had a technical glitch. Emily had even laughed, suggesting I update the software. I'd only nodded. Now, I quietly dragged my desk chair to the center of the room, climbed up, and taped a strip of black tape over the lens, just in case someone forgot to turn it off after hours. Back at my desk, I smoothed my hair, opened my laptop. The best way to fool those who always watch is to give them a show. I started typing a fake email to the scholarship representative. I regret to inform you that I won't be able to attend the interview due to personal reasons. Thank you for your consideration. I deliberately left my door ajar. Minutes later, familiar footsteps echoed, light and quick. Emily's signature pace. I didn't turn, but I could feel her eyes scanning every detail of my screen. Evelyn? Her voice dripped sweetness, like honey swirling in hot tea, but I was immune to that sugar coating by now. I exhaled softly, adding another line. I hope to apply again next year, if there's still an opportunity. You're giving up? Emily asked, her tone laced with cautious disbelief. I shrugged, turning just enough to reveal a face tinged with quiet resignation. I think maybe everyone's right. Europe is too much. Maybe this is a sign from God. I should learn to accept it. She smiled. Not wide, not obvious, just a slight curve of her lips, but to me it echoed like a victory lap. Emily nodded slowly, gently closing my door, as if she were the bigger person. But I knew, the moment that door clicked shut, she was already texting at least 3 friends about my supposed epiphany. Fine. Let them think I'd surrendered. I sat still for a moment, until her footsteps faded down the stairs. Then I opened my secret group chat with Noah. Camera disabled, family thinks I've given up. Plan Bravo is a go. His reply was almost instant. I'll get you out safely. Tomorrow, 4:45. Car waiting at Applewood. I nodded to myself in the dark. This plan had been in motion for 3 months. Ever since I quietly applied for a new passport, hid my plane tickets under the false bottom of an old shoebox, and created a dummy application for a trip that would never happen. Every detail was meant to mislead them. I sat down to handwrite a letter. Not a farewell, more like a declaration of freedom. I sealed it in an envelope, scribbling on the front, "For those who think they know who I am." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, watching the light spilling from Emily's room across the yard, her laughter slicing through the past like a knife. 4:30 a.m. I changed into jeans, a khaki jacket, tied my hair back, and slung on the old backpack where everything was hidden. Every step had to be as precise as a chess move. I skipped the 3rd stair, the one that creaks, and tiptoed into the kitchen. Mom had set the coffee maker for 5 a.m. for her early Bible study, so the scent of brewing coffee was already seeping into the air, masking the tension. I eased the door open. Unfortunately, the hinge let out a sharp creak. I held my breath. The sound of a toilet flushing upstairs echoed down. The bathroom door opened. I bolted out the front door like a shadow, sprinting across the lawn. The gray SUV under the tree blinked its lights softly. Get in. Noah opened the door. I jumped in, just as a familiar voice bellowed from the upstairs bedroom window. Evelyn Grace Parker, stop right there. I didn't stop. The car shot off into the morning mist. Behind us, the pristine white house had become the last cage I'd just broken free from. I never looked back. As soon as Noah's SUV turned out of Applewood, my phone exploded with notifications. Messages from Mom, Dad, and, unsurprisingly, a flurry of missed calls from Emily. "Evelyn, you're making a terrible mistake," Mom texted, sterner than ever. "Come home. We need to talk as a family." Dad added, short and cold. "And Emily, you think you've won? You're only setting yourself up for humiliation." I glanced at Noah, smirking. Right on schedule. He gave a quiet laugh, but his eyes reflected the weight of what I was carrying. "Ready?" I whispered, fingers flying over my screen. The group message Plan Bravo was activated one last time. Perfect timing. Raise the curtain. In less than 5 minutes, the video hit the Parker family group chat. A small, parting gift before I officially boarded that plane. The screen lit up with clear footage. Emily, in our darkened garage, sneaking bleach onto my turquoise prom dress the night before the dance. Another clip showed her slipping into my room, removing the external hard drive from my laptop right before my project deadline. I added a simple caption. "May God forgive those who preach virtue with bleach-stained hands." Noah whistled when he saw my face. Savage. Not done yet. I swiped to the next slide. A photo of me at the Boston passport office on March 12th appeared, crystal clear. Official stamps, confirmation emails, postal tracking, everything lined up. The final message I dropped into the chat. "Oh, by the way, my new passport's been ready for 5 months. This time, no one in the family gets to accidentally lose it." I pictured Mom clutching her chest, gasping her usual, "Oh my heavens!" Dad's jaw tightening, giving Emily that silent, knowing glare but not daring to admit it. And Emily? She'd slam her phone down, then flip her persona faster than an Oscar-winning actress. The phone buzzed again. "Evelyn, you're disgracing this family," Dad texted. "God is watching you, Evelyn," Mom added, hiding behind Faith once more. And then Emily's message appeared. Short. Sharp. "Traitor." I smiled faintly. Traitor? No. I was just revealing the truth. Now for the fun part. I turned to Noah. "Got the live stream ready?" Noah nodded, handing me his phone. "All set. Facebook, YouTube, even your mom's church groups are tuned in." I adjusted my hair, looked straight into the lens, and smiled. "Good morning. This is Evelyn Parker. Seems my family's quite worried about the family image. Well then, let's clear things up together." I scrolled through old photos, scholarship certificates, state-level science awards, state debate champion titles, none of which ever made it to the Parker family walls, because Emily is the real pride. It's time people understood that success doesn't always come wrapped in a pure white dress and a fake smile. I paused, eyes locked on the screen. "Someone's been trying to drown me for years. Sorry, I know how to swim." Below, the comments exploded like fireworks. Is this real? This girl is the one who deserves the spotlight. That church sure loved to praise Emily Parker. Now it makes sense. Noah gestured. "We gotta move. Airport's just 15 minutes out." I ended the live stream with one sentence. "I'm heading to Paris. Not to run away, but to live my life. Thanks for the lessons." We pulled out of the parking lot, leaving behind the echo of phone calls. Mom, Dad, Emily, all desperately trying to control what they'd already lost. Me. "Evelyn," Noah said as we merged onto the highway. "They're not gonna let this go easily." I leaned my head against the window, watching the sunrise break through. "That's fine, as long as they understand one thing. From now on, I'm not standing still for them to step on anymore." Paris was waiting ahead. At 5:12 in the morning, Noah's SUV sped out of Applewood, cutting through the thick October fog. Behind us, the sleepy neighborhood remained quiet, except for the White House at number 27, where doors had just flung open in chaos. "I think they just found out," Noah chuckled. eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. I didn't need to look back. I knew exactly how Emily would storm onto the balcony, phone glued to her ear, frantically calling everyone to stop me. Mom would spiral, ranting about that girl ruining the family. Dad, as always, would stay cold but extreme, ordering everyone to erase every trace. But this time, they were a step too slow. I'd been ahead of them by months. My phone vibrated violently. Notifications flooded in from the family group chat. I opened it, just to confirm my predictions. Mom, Evelyn Grace Parker, you come back home immediately. Don't let this go too far. Dad, your actions are shameful. Come home now, so we can talk. Emily, you think you're so smart? You'll regret this. I pressed and held the group icon, blocked. I'm guessing they're panicking, Noah said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Good. Let them taste that feeling for once, I replied, eyes fixed on the road ahead. My voice was calmer than I had expected. Only 20 minutes to the airport. The plan to escape the Parker family's silent theater was unfolding perfectly. Careful here, traffic cameras. Noah eased the speed, hands steady on the wheel. If they try to blow this up as you running away, we'll need proof you left legally. I pulled out a clear plastic folder from my backpack. Inside were copies of my new passport, plane tickets, scholarship invitation, even baggage receipts. Not a single loophole. They've got nothing to cling to, Noah. They're just flailing now. I looked out the window. The houses blurred into the mist, like ink stains fading away. The suffocating weight that had clung to me for 21 years was finally dissolving with them. Dad always said I was born to know my place. Mom loved to remind me. A smart woman should know how to stay in the background. Emily? She didn't have to say much. One smile from her and the world decided I was the rebellious, ungrateful one. But this morning, I was no longer their Evelyn. Noah pulled into a lot near the airport, cutting the engine. Last step, Evelyn. You sure about this? He looked at me, eyes filled not with doubt, but with respect. I tightened the straps of my backpack, took a deep breath. I'm sure. We walked into the airport's main hall, where warm yellow lights and the constant hum of flight announcements filled the space. Here, no one knew me as the troublesome Parker daughter. Here, I was just a young woman with a dream named Paris tucked in her pocket. My phone buzzed again. Emily, you won't get far. Don't forget who stands behind that church door every Sunday. I didn't care. Blocked her number, too. Mommy used to say, family is something you can never cut off. Wrong. Some ties aren't worth keeping. I stopped at the security checkpoint. Noah helped place my luggage on the conveyor belt, his eyes following my every move, like an older brother watching over me. You did it, Evelyn. This is the part you walk on your own. Noah extended his hand. I took his hand, gripping it tightly, saying nothing. Because he knew, thank you was the smallest thing I wanted to say. As I stepped through security, each footstep felt like shedding the invisible ropes that had tied me down for years. I didn't look back. I didn't care what Emily would do next. I had lived too long in fear of their gazes, of words disguised as love. But starting today, I chose my own voice. Paris wasn't an escape. It was a beginning. The announcement echoed. Passengers on flight 1537 to Paris, please proceed to gate 14. I tightened my grip on my ticket and walked straight toward it. Ahead of me, for the first time, was my world. When the plane's wheels touched down at Charles de Gaulle, I was ready for everything, except the overwhelming, breath-stealing feeling of freedom. Paris welcomed me in warm silence. No one here knew me as the Parker family's daughter, and for the first time, I felt like I truly belonged. At the Global Policy Institute, surrounded by ivy-covered stone walls, I was just another unfamiliar name. But that anonymity made me free. No one asked about Emily. No one viewed me as the dutiful daughter or the difficult one. Here, they saw only merit. And that I had in abundance. The first seminar focused on the power of digital activism in the 21st century. I knew immediately this was my stage. Evelyn Parker, candidate from Boston, will present an analysis on how digital media liberates personal voices from traditional barriers. The host announced, and I walked to the stage, every heartbeat loud and clear. I didn't start with statistics. I started with my truth. I grew up in a family where silence was considered a virtue, where success was only recognized if it came from the daughter they had pre-approved. But the digital world taught me something else. No one can silence you when you hold the microphone yourself. In the front row, ambassadors and leaders nodded. Some exchanged glances as if they'd heard these words in whispers before, but never spoken aloud. I continued with my research on social movements born from social media, from Me Too to global human rights campaigns. But the highlight was my personal experience, how a family could manipulate, control, and suffocate dreams under a polished facade of virtue. Not everything wrapped in pretty words is love. Sometimes control disguises itself as care. And sometimes the most toxic things come from the place we call home. When I paused, the room was breathless. Then, applause erupted, wave after wave crashing through the hall. In that moment, I knew. I had struck where it hurt most. After the seminar, reporters from major outlets swarmed around me. They weren't just interested in the presentation, but in the story behind it. The story of a young woman who dared to step out of her family's gilded cage to claim her own voice. The first headline broke, Evelyn Parker, from forgotten daughter to voice of a generation. Within 48 hours, the shadows of the Parker family were dragged into the light. Alumni groups, neighbors, even church members came forward, confirming Evelyn had been dismissed, her achievements hidden, while Emily was excessively favored. Emily reacted immediately. She posted a 5-minute video on social media, crying about how her sister fabricated stories to destroy the family's reputation, insisting she only wanted to protect unity. But this time, the old script didn't work. The comments were ruthless. Then who ruined her prom dress? Care to explain the garage camera footage? And did she fake the scholarship invitation and stellar records too? Emily quietly deleted the video within hours. Her once perfect social media accounts vanished without a trace. And then the confirmation came. Emily Parker was suspended from her role as youth pastor at the church due to ethical concerns. Meanwhile, I was invited to a special interview on an international television network. The host asked, Evelyn, why do you think your story resonates so powerfully? I looked straight into the camera and smiled. Because everyone has an Emily in their life, and everyone has been forced into silence at some point just to keep others comfortable. But when the truth is spoken, it doesn't need to shout. It only needs to be clear. That broadcast went viral. They started calling me the voice of the forgotten children. And the Parker family? They stayed silent. No statements, no defenses. Because this time, there was nowhere left for them to twist the narrative. I didn't need to seek revenge. The truth did it for me. Less than 3 weeks after my speech in Paris, my inbox overflowed with invitations I once thought were only for other people's kids. The European Parliament sent an official letter inviting me to present on the impact of digital activism in dismantling traditional power structures. The subject line alone made me reread it 3 times. To be sure, I wasn't imagining it. Right after, the Global Young Leaders Program formally appointed me as the North America Regional Ambassador, a position quietly reserved for Harvard or Yale types. A text from Noah came in, simple and sharp. Funny how the forgotten daughter turned out to be the ace, huh? I smiled, but inside, a sweet satisfaction spread through every cell. The pinnacle came when the White House reached out, inviting me to speak at the Next Generation Leadership Forum as a guest speaker. From the girl once forced to sit at the far end of her own family's dinner table, I was now preparing to address the nation's policymakers. Across the ocean, the Parker family was sinking into the downfall they had sown themselves. Emmanuel Church, where Mom and Emily had once been the faces of traditional family values, released an official statement. Due to ethical transparency concerns, the church has decided to suspend all collaborations with the Parker family until further notice. In plain terms, they were being shunned. The same people who once patted my father on the back after every Sunday service now quietly turned away. Mom, once so proud of her image as the self-sacrificing family woman, no longer dared step outside. As for Emily, she tried clinging to the remnants of her fading spotlight, live-streaming videos claiming she was merely a victim of misunderstanding, that my sister changed because of fame. But this time, the internet wasn't so easily fooled. Care to explain the garage video, Emily? Time to take responsibility, Golden Girl. Your sister's success isn't your failure. Own up. Finally, after 3 deleted posts and 2 disabled comment sections, Emily uploaded one last video. But this time, no fake tears. Her face appeared pale, no makeup, no familiar pink filters. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Parker. Today, I'm not making excuses, not defending myself. She took a deep breath, looking straight into the camera. For the first time, her gaze didn't flinch. I was wrong. I was jealous of my sister, and instead of striving to be better, I chose to sabotage. Deep down, I was scared. I feared that if Evelyn was recognized, the praise I'd been basking in would disappear. Her head lowered, voice softening. I'm sorry, Evelyn. Not for what you said on stage, but for every time you stayed silent while I deliberately stepped on you. That video spread quickly. But this time, the response was different. Owning your mistakes is the first step. Good luck. No one's perfect, but it takes courage to admit you're wrong. I watched the entire clip without bitterness. Forgiveness? Maybe not yet, but I no longer needed hatred to drive me forward. My phone lit up with another notification. Global Initiative nominates Evelyn Parker for the 2025 Emerging Young Leader Award. Noah texted, "You've already won. Not because you beat them, Evelyn, but because you outgrew them." I gazed out the window, where the Parisian light stretched across centuries-old rooftops. The Parker family always thought I would remain a shadow. A daughter who knew her place, stayed quiet, and shrank herself to fit the mold they designed. But they were wrong. And now, as they're forced to watch my success unfold across the media, they're learning the hard way. The more you try to silence a voice, the louder it becomes. That morning, right after my article, Freeing Your Worth from the Family Cage, was published on Global Voices, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. But this time, it wasn't warnings or guilt trips from my parents. Instead, it was messages from strangers, young people reaching out. I'm Lily, 22. My family used to lock me into the label of the failed child. Thank you for speaking up. Evelyn, your story gave me the courage to apply to my dream school, even though my mom told me stop daydreaming. Each message was a fragment of lives crushed under warped expectations. And I realized my journey wasn't the exception. It was part of a much bigger picture. I knew then I couldn't stop at telling just my story. That's how The Unseen Voices was born. A platform for young people overlooked by their own families, helping them reclaim their voices and redefine their worth. I started with small workshops in Paris, where I lived and worked. But within 3 months, the project had spread across universities in Europe, then to the US, Asia, and Africa. Every week, I received handwritten letters, long emails pouring out stories of other Evelyns, girls told to stay in their place, boys labeled as useless dreamers for not following the family business, children forced to shrink so others could feel bigger. And with every story, I didn't just listen. I helped them write a new chapter. One June evening, after finishing a speech at the United Nations Youth Forum, my assistant handed me an envelope. Sender: Linda Parker. I stared at the familiar handwriting. Inside was a small note, only a few lines. We didn't understand you, but that's no longer a reason to keep you in that cage. I hope one day we can look at each other honestly, without playing roles. I felt peaceful. Forgiveness is a choice, but accepting that I no longer needed their approval, that was true freedom. I folded the note, carefully placing it in the drawer where I kept letters, articles, and messages from young people who found themselves through the Black Sheep's success story. At the Global Women in Leadership Conference, I was invited to speak on turning underestimation into motivation for success. Stepping onto the stage, in front of thousands, I no longer felt like I was standing in a place of judgment. There were no scrutinizing stares from Emily, no heavy sighs from Mom, no furrowed brows from Dad. This time, their eyes reflected genuine respect. Not because they were forced to, but because my story had touched them. I was once called a failure, a rebel. But they forgot. The black sheep isn't always lost. Sometimes, it's just carving a different path. And when it's determined enough, it becomes the one that leads the flock out of outdated comfort zones. The audience rose in a standing ovation. My existence no longer hinged on past perceptions. In that moment, I realized my story was no longer about revenge, no longer about exposing anyone. It had become a symbol for those who had been sidelined, silenced, forced into shadows for not fitting family molds. Black sheep success wasn't a title. It was a reminder that true worth doesn't come from being granted permission. It comes from daring to stand, even if you stand alone. The auditorium lights dimmed, leaving the stage bathed in TED Talk's signature red glow. My name appeared on the big screen, with a simple subtitle, From Black Sheep to Changemaker. I walked to center stage. My steps no longer trembled as they once did, not because I'd grown used to attention, but because I now knew I was speaking for millions who'd been overlooked, whose dreams were snuffed out in their own homes. I grew up in a family that believed obedience was the greatest virtue in a daughter. I began, my voice steady, free of bitterness, simply stating the truth. They taught me to bow to what they called love. A love built on conditions, limits, and control. Hundreds of faces watched, some intently, some reflectively, as if seeing themselves mirrored in my words. But what they didn't realize, I continued, is that the harder you try to clip someone's wings, the more determined they become to fly farther, stronger. I spoke of Paris, of my first presentation, of how my stories spread beyond anything I imagined, not because it was special, but because far too many had been trapped in cages just like mine. We're taught to be grateful to family, no questions asked. But that doesn't mean we have to accept being diminished, manipulated, under the guise of love. The applause echoed, sharp and certain. Family isn't just blood, I said, looking straight into the camera, where millions were watching live from around the world. Family is the people who truly see you, who cherish you, and who lift you up, even when you choose a path different from theirs. I paused, letting the silence stretch like an invisible exclamation point. I used to think revenge meant making those who belittled me regret it. But then I realized the sweetest revenge is living better, succeeding more, and, most importantly, not letting the past dictate your future. The audience rose in a standing ovation, not polite applause. This was the sound of people who had just heard something that struck deep within. After the talk, I stepped backstage. Noah was already there, holding my usual coffee. He didn't say much, just handed it to me and nodded. My phone buzzed, a message from Emily. You were right. Family isn't a cage to lock each other in. I'm trying to learn how to be part of something better. No longer just someone's shadow. Thank you for not waiting for me to change before living your life. I read it again, then tucked my phone into my pocket. Forgiveness doesn't happen instantly. But I smiled, knowing I had finally stepped out of that endless loop of the past. My black sheep success story was no longer a counterattack on the Parker family. It had become a symbol for an entire generation. Those once labeled too different, too dreamy, too much, in a world obsessed with fitting in. As I exited the auditorium, a group of students from the Unseen Voices program waited. "Evelyn, you're the reason we dared to stand here today," said a brown-haired girl, her voice trembling but her eyes steady. I wasn't a superhero. I was just a girl who had once been as afraid as they were. But choosing to walk through that fear had made all the difference. And now they were taking their first steps too. I understood this journey wouldn't end with a TED Talk or an award. Because every day, somewhere in the world, there were still children being forced to shrink themselves to fit others' expectations. But if even one person dared to stand up, that chain would start to break, link by link. I would keep holding the pliers to cut through those chains. Not because I had anything to prove to anyone, but because I owed myself a free life. That day, Paris glowed under golden sunlight. I walked forward, heart unburdened. Once the forgotten daughter. Now, I no longer needed to be remembered to know my worth. I stepped into the light, and this time, it wasn't from anyone's shadow. Evelyn's story is not just a journey of breaking free from family control, but a powerful reminder. True success doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from living true to your own values. In today's world, many young people are still being suffocated by outdated molds, but courage to step out of the comfort zone is the key to freedom. Evelyn has become a symbol for a generation that dares to be different, to fail, and to write their own stories. What do you think about Evelyn's journey and the message behind this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful and heartfelt stories about family and life in upcoming videos.